What is this? A trophy for ants? Yeah, we're back talking about Table Golf Association. This is the Meeple Beach Edition. So, what are we getting in Table Golf Association 2.0? Dexterity, golf. Everything you need to know. Let's go. We'll set the trophy aside here for a minute. Don't get distracted by the shiny. But what do you need to know if you're looking at this, right? Talked about this previously the first time it came around. It's coming back to crowdfunding. What I have in front of me is just a sample, a smattering of a small hole. Because this game is basically just do it yourself and go by the seat of your pants of what you want a hole to look like with this game. All you do in this game is take your little hand, flick your little ball bearing here inside of the little plastic disc towards the hole. You get it in the hole over here. That's it. Par whatever you want. Make it as large or as small as you want. That's Table Golf Association in a nutshell. So what is Meeple Beach bringing to you in the first place, right? And unfortunately, my table isn't level, so take that for what you will. But all you're doing is flicking. And you'll notice just when I flick right there, the very, very delicate nature of this game in the first place. And the other thing that we have going on the table as well are your hazards. The hazards that are new, the hazards that are old, because this game is giving you a little bit of both to go with whatever you want and however you prefer to play. The tricky part of this game is that you can make it, well, like I said, as large or as small. To be frank, this is a relatively small tile course, right? I've got in front of me, right? I've got about 12 or so hexes on a 3x3 grid. Realistically, though, if you're going to play a par 3, 4, or 5, especially at those higher pars, you may be taking up the whole of your table in the first place. And it's a little bit finicky. Like these tiles kind of have a little bit of gap there if you're not very careful. So it requires a delicate touch to set up. It requires a delicate touch in order to score in the first place. And as you can see, I'm not very good. But it lies in also how you want to do it, because you also have your putter if you're a better shot with this than you are with your finger. Now, these hazards, as you may be familiar or not, basically give you two ways of adjusting the difficulty and what you're going to be having to deal with on the fly. Haha, dead pun. Because what you're going to be doing is each of these different tiles has a maximum length of how long you can essentially shoot it. And if you exceed that, well, you take a penalty. If you land in certain areas, you take a penalty. That penalty may be moving the puck or the golf ball to a certain area or back in a certain way. It also may be to take, instead of my dominant right hand and my preferred finger, the opposite hand and the opposite finger in order to get that. And I'm almost better with my non-dominant, which is weird, right? 4 new types of tiles of combinations that you're going to have. You have the fairway with the tree here, and you actually have little mini trees. We'll talk about that in a second. Then you have the ocean sand, you have the sand grass, and you have the grass cliff. Again, different combinations thereof, all of these being double-sided tiles, so you can choose how you want. You can also see directional arrows because these are represented by hills of the little wavy lines there. The other thing with this edition, just like the previous edition, it's going to be offered in the cardboard, but also the heavy deluxeified wooden tokens that I've got here for tiles. And truth be told, this is one of the few games I would dare say in a collection that I would not back cardboard. I wouldn't bother with the cardboard level at all. Because if you're anything like me and you've played any of these dexterity flicking games, primarily the one I always think of is my first edition of Catacombs 3rd edition, right? My first copy of it was the cardboard tiles. And if you've ever had cardboard tiles that you bend and fold to make maps, you'll notice eventually that they start to just so ever slightly get off like that. And then when you're flicking over, you bump into them and they don't slide over very well. And then it goes wherever it may go. So the fact that these are wooden is basically a must, which puts you in a dilemma of a situation, because this price point is going to be higher inevitably if you're interested in this game in the first place. The setup, is the other, sort of elephant in the room. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, you can see even with me playing this once or twice here, these tiles start to shift ever so slightly. And so just some constant readjustment is kind of necessary. And how do you feel about that? Is that too much for you to have to do with that? Because there is no, like a lot of other dexterity games or board-based games with edges like this, thing to outline it in, to lock it in place. So if you're not careful with how you're doing this, not like that, but careful in other ways, then it's going to shift. And you can already see, again, the two up here, very shifted, then shifting here, then shifting here. So is that going to be a make it or break it for you? Because again, the other main criticism that I had of the original base game was that, okay, what tiles are what? What goes with what? What's on the opposite side of anything but the tee box? Well, the tee box is still the tee box. I didn't say tee bag there, so caught myself. And thankfully, this time around, they've done two separate things. One, these tiles are going to be numbered and lettered. So you have a little bit more organization of what's on what. There's also going to be a separate sheet, play card, if you will, an iconography card to tell you, oh, you have a cliff and a water on one side. The other side is a fairway with a hill. So it's going to allow you to, well, kind of sort through these a little bit quicker because you have a fair metric ton of them from that aspect of things. That was stupid. I don't know why I did that on camera, especially next to my bad ear, if you will. The other dynamic that goes along with this to give you some more mitigation is you have fading and drawing, right? How strong is the wind, and can you predict which way you're going to flick in order to account for and then mitigate with your own type of spin on the ball in a, well, dexterity-based way, allowing you to essentially adjust ball lengths back. The last element of things that we have to talk about is just the absolute immensity or overwhelming nature of this game in the first place. What I mean by that is this has to be something you want and desire to play. Because as you can see here, this is a very small smattering of, like I said, about 13 or so hexes. One of the examples in the rulebook, let me show you, because this is really where this game is going to be the make it or break it for the aficionados. I'm not in this, ankle deep. I am a golf lover. I am a board game lover, and I am waist deep. This example in the rule book here, this is called Captain Hook. 750 yards, par 5 or a par 6. But look at this. This layout is fine. The cliffs, the waters, the dangers, the hook of it as a whole, but it is 27 tiles. This is a large hole. This is going to be the best use of this game in a nutshell. If you don't like doing this setup, if you can't handle, this sort of thing, you're maybe not going to be getting your money's worth if that's not what you're looking for. Because this is where the skill part of things comes in with a hole like this. The small hole, like I've got it set up in front of me, right? I've got barely a little hook here. You're getting a little tiny bit of wind. You can navigate the hazards relatively easily and squarely like they're nothing. And so if this is going to be your primary use, it may fall very, very flat with you. And again, price point is not insignificant. You are paying for a deluxe product. Now, I will argue that this is one of the few that needs to be deluxe with the wooden. The other element that allows for mitigation, depending on how much of a pro player you are, right, is you have cards here that are basically your ability uses for your named golfers to give a little bit of slight asymmetry if you want that sort of thing to go along and to make you really feel like I can mitigate in some way, shape, or form here. Increase the wind strength, remove a tree, place the ball on the water edge instead of, taking the penalty there. So all of these give you a little bit of something different from that aspect as well. Now, just to be fair, with the tree, well, you don't actually place it in the pro rules until you actually land on it, and then you move it out of the way and you put the tree down sort of as a hazard penalty to get around it. So again, not a huge deal either way, but something that I don't feel like I'm needing in my game as a whole, right? If you're going to put terrain up there, and that's probably the other big criticism I saw some comments on, right? Like actually having a little bit more textured in terms of like the sand or the fairway or the hill here in order to give you some slight asymmetry variability. At the same time, when I see those suggestions and I see those comments and critiques, I'm not really sure how you could do that and have this be anywhere close to level, anywhere close to halfway predictable, a complete and utter cluster of unpredictability. Again, I'm an agent of chaos and a fan of just messing with things, but that would be a little over the top in a nutshell. So do you need to do any number of holes? No. Pick your holes. Whoa, that's a dangerous statement. Pick however many holes you'd like to play on a golf setting. Don't have to do the full 9 or the full 18, and you just go until somebody decides that they've had enough or you've won enough, and other people can just bask in your glory as you get to hold the trophy. But that's it in a nutshell. Does this appeal to you? Again, this is a niche game. It's excellently done, but it is not without, things that you're not going to like either. This is not going to appeal to you if you're not a dexterity person. It's just not. If you don't want a little bit more of a setup, and again, I say that as there's some fiddliness with this setup in terms of, I bump it and it's like that, right? Or having the course make a lot of sense, like I showed you the Captain Hook setup earlier, like then it's going to require a little bit more of a thoughtful process. And if you don't want to do that, again, like you can just kind of do whatever. No one's going to stop you. It's not going to be necessarily less fun. It's going to be crazier. It's going to be less predictable. It's going to be potentially even harder. But there's nothing to say you can't do that either. But the full enjoyment is going to be, I have a little bit more time. I can be a little bit more elaborate. And some of the stuff that they offer, in terms of their website and the rule book is, probably going to be of your benefit to say, here's some sample stuff that we've already done. And you could probably play those sample ones that they put out there on a repeated basis and not have them get old either. Just like if you're really a golfer, you don't always go to a different golf course every single time, do you? You play the same golf course over and over again because you still screw it up, even though you know where it should go. It doesn't always do what you want it to do. And that encapsulates this game in a nutshell. And so if you want that frustration of tossing your golf clubs across the room, only in a cardboard style here, like this, well, this game will offer it too because it's freaking hard. So if that appeals to you, give it a look-see. Now, this is the second edition, right? This is Meeple Beach, standalone as a whole. And the last point I can't help but say is, if you have this already, do you need this new base game? Is this necessarily something that is a must-have? No, it's not. I'd say it gives you more variability, a few of the extra add-ons that are going to be along with this, the extra hazards. It's going to give a little bit more stretch mileage from that aspect of things. But if you have one, you might be better off just piecemealing some of the smaller components or smaller expansions or smaller content separately, rather than buying this edition as a whole. Because I think you could do either or and be relatively happy and just have a little bit of your mileage may vary with the small nuance differences between the two as a whole. So, yeah, there you go. Meeple Beach, sent it to me, Table Golf Association. Check it out if you're interested on crowdfunding. Thanks for watching. Stay classy. Have a great freaking fantastic day. See you around. And, if you made it somehow to the end of this video, it'd be super cool if you subscribe too. Peace out.